So I just beat Final Fantasy 15, and lordy do I have a lot of feelings. And big disclaimer guys, before we jump in, for the record, this is not an official review from me. I'm just gonna talk about my feelings about my experience of the game because this is a highly anticipated game for my quote-unquote audience. Hello everybody. And a lot of people have been asking me my thoughts about the game. Is it good? Was it worth it? Blah 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 blah. So if this is your first video of mine ever, which might be the case, who knows? For the record guys, this is not my normal zhuzh. Normally I do beginner's guides for video games, and that's a lot more edited and more fun and well thought out. And don't be mistaken, there is going to be a for beginners on Final Fantasy 15. It's just gonna take a little bit longer. This, however, is just another rambles video because this has been one of my most highly anticipated games in the past like 3 years. I've really been trying to get my hands on it, and you know what? It's out. It's finally out. We have it. It's here. I played through the whole thing till start to finish until I got a freaking credit screen, essentially the main story or main plot, and now it's technically beat. I think I can talk about my experience so far. So again guys, this is not the end-all say-all review. This is my experience, and I'll be honest, I have crap taste. Any of you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I'm not here to give the game a proper score or review. This is not an official review. This is just my thoughts. So let's just jump into it, kids, alright? First things first, let's just get the big thing out of the way. Is Final Fantasy 15 good? Yes, I can say that with a strong, confident yes. This is a good game overall. Many people are going to find this enjoyable. Doesn't matter if you're new to the series or familiar with the series. Final Fantasy 15 has something for everybody. And overall, the experience, even though it's got a lot of shortcomings and some issues, the core of the game is freaking solid, and it's so enjoyable, guys. I played this for 25 hours straight and I didn't get tired of it. The big thing with Final Fantasy 15, though, is the history of its development. It's technically been in development for quote-unquote 10 years, and a lot of people are asking, is this game worth a 10-year development? No, it's not worth a 10-year development. I'll be honest, the game kind of feels rushed in a bunch of areas, and personally, the game suffers from over-ambition. You can tell they wanted to do like some crazy over-the-top stuff, but they just didn't either have the time or the resources or something changed that it just couldn't be brought to its full vision, and that's a real shame. But technically, the game hasn't really been in development for 10 years. If you kind of exclude Versus 13 entirely, the game has really been in development for about 4 to 5 years, and this game seems like it's been in development for 4 to 5 years. Because as sloppy as some sections are, some of the sections are really good, and I think that justifies the long development cycle for the most part. Not the 10-year development cycle, but the actual development cycle for Final Fantasy 15, not Versus 13. Because Final Fantasy 15 as a whole, the concept of it has been in development for 10 years, but not the actual game. So let's judge it for what it is. Ignore the development cycle. The game is good, but definitely not worth a 10-year wait, if you know what I'm saying. Now, one of the things I mentioned in my most recent video is I didn't think this game was going to surpass the kind of hype of 7, but I did think it was going to rejuvenate some of the love people have for Final Fantasy because 13 is considered bad. And it turns out I'm kind of right because it's not better than 7. Not from like a grand scale thing. Obviously, it's a game built today is going to be better than a game that was built 20 years ago if you're looking at like graphics and design and stuff like that. But when it comes to just general feels, no, I don't think this game is going to surpass 7. It is, however, much better than Final Fantasy 13, and I can really say that. Holy crap. Final Fantasy 13 is seen as super controversial for most people, and a lot of people hate it, and if you're like, man, I hate 13, screw lightning, screw all the pink, I hate it, I hate pressing auto attack, it's garbo, Final Fantasy 15 is exactly what Final Fantasy 13 isn't, which is fun and open, and you can do whatever you want, and you can explore. So if you hated 13, give 15 a chance because it is really like night and day when it comes to gameplay and structure, so just do that. If you hated 13, play 15, and honestly, if you like 13, also play 15, because again, it's just good. It's just overall a good experience. But then again, that's just me personally. I like 13, which probably means I have crap taste, so who knows, whatever. Take it with a grain of salt. Overall, it's all great. Check it out. Maybe if you're wary of the game, get it on discount or something. Anyway, now let's go into the nitty-gritty when it comes to the story and the world and all that jazz, because a lot of people play Final Fantasy games for the story. For those people, I don't know who you are, but a lot of people are invested in the story of a Final Fantasy game. Now, the thing with 15 is that it's got very, very interesting lore, and we've seen a lot of that lore kind of shown to us gradually before the game came out. A lot of it's in the development, a lot of it's been in trailers, movies, animes, all that jazz. And the problem with 15 is that it has such an interesting universe and it doesn't do enough with it. Real talk, if you have not done your homework, if you have not watched Kingsglaive, if you have not watched Brotherhood, or you have not just gone over and like looked the development of this game, you are not gonna know what the heck is going on or who these people are. The game tries to catch you up, but it does a really bad job at it. It offers a optional tutorial and there's a lore guide, which is literally just like a wiki page. It just explains like, okay, here's your setting, here's all this, and you should probably read this, because if you do not read that, you're gonna be like, who the heck are these people? What is going on? Essentially anything story related, if you do not know the lore of the world, nothing is going to make sense because the game does not explain it properly. I wish they had more exposition in the beginning and just overall more cutscenes to explain things, because personally I like those kinds of things that kind of break up like all the gameplay. Because if the story is a huge factor in this world, you should probably start shoving it in people's faces in a decent amount, because there's just too little. It's too vague to be really interesting to a first timer. But if you know the lore, if you know the story, it works. It works for the most part, but again, it feels like there are chunks missing if you're not familiar with the universe. So for all you Final Fantasy nerds out there who watched all the crap before this game came out, you're gonna be sweet dandy, but for newcomers, God help you. And some of you may have noticed, hey Buns, the game came out like 2 days ago as of this video. You're right, it did come out 2 days ago, and I did beat it in 2 days. I beat the game in 25 hours, and for a lot of people, that's a huge, huge turnoff. And some of you are like, 25 hours? I thought this was a Final Fantasy game, you know, like 70 plus hours of raw story and cutscenes, what the hecky? Well, you see, Final Fantasy 15 doesn't put all of its cards into the story. Like I said, it's too vague for its own good. Some of you might see this as a negative or a positive, but the story is not padded. It's pretty straightforward for the most part, and there's not a lot of mumbo jumbo that kind of like tries to break up some of the stuff. It just goes straight into it, and the story is very short. I did beat the game in 25 hours, and I was a little under leveled, but the recommended level for the end boss was 45, and I was at level 40, which means that it wants you to beat the game at a pretty low level. Honestly, this game really wants you to get past the story so you can get to the real meat of the game. Most of the plot and other story elements are actually outside of the quote-unquote main quest. It just doesn't do that typical Final Fantasy thing where it's like, you know, you got like a 5-hour prologue of just solid story stuff, and then you get access to the open world for a little bit, and then more cutscenes, more things, some ups and downs, some twists and turns and stuff. No, Final Fantasy 15 just goes guns straight for it. It wants you to finish the game so you can actually jump into the real game. Or in 13's case, just walk down this hallway and here's a crap ton of cutscenes and then you can just deal with it, okay? The point is, if you are into this game for the campaign story mission stuff, you are going to be severely disappointed. Because again, 15 suffers from that overly ambitious thing. I feel like they wanted to do so many things of the story, but at the end of the day, it was too expensive to have too many events, so they just ended up cutting out a bunch of stuff. So the story is short, but there's a reason behind it, because most of their efforts were put into making the open world work. And holy crap, does the open world frickin' work. The mass majority, if not all of the content of the game is in the open world, and you're exploring the mass continent of Eos, a super pretty place that I'm absolutely in love with so far. If you are not into open world games, this is definitely not the Final Fantasy for you. Holy crap, because the open world is literally the entire game. But to its credit, it does it really, really, really well. First of all, it's freaking gorgeous, like my eyes gorgeous. Like, I took moments just to pan the camera around because it was so freaking pretty. From the landscapes to the cities, because holy crap, the cities are super detailed. This game is so pretty, and I love it. I love the world of Eos. I personally really, really like fantasy mixed with reality, and that's its big thing. It feels like a place that could exist, but like not here. It's very good. It feels real for the most part. So Eos is really, really freaking pretty, and just seeing everything for the first time is freaking awesome. I just can't stress that enough. This is my jam, my aesthetics. Holy crap, 10 out of 10. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. There's also a day and night cycle which comes into gameplay, but it just makes things a lot more but looks and size aren't everything. One of the problems open worlds tend to have is that there is a lot of space but not a lot to do. Well, Final Fantasy 15's got you covered. It is dense. It's as dense as it needs to be. Yeah, not every single corner has something interesting to do, but there is so much side content that it's almost a little overwhelming for me personally, but there is always something to do in Eos, whether it be just walking around killing stuff, tons of hunts, tons of side quests. Like one of the side quests was just me feeding a cat to get cat food. It's just tiny cool stuff. Or it could be taking out a huge monster, or it could be fishing, or taking a picture, or taking out a demigod. It doesn't matter. I found myself doing those little tiny minigame stuff a lot because they actually integrate really well into gameplay. A lot of games will just have like these extra features that don't really do anything, but Final Fantasy 15 makes sure that all of the extra doodads that you do actually end up helping you in the long run. One of the better mechanics in 15, I think, is the camping mechanic. There is a day and night cycle, and if you walk around at night, it's really dangerous, and you can bite your sweet bit, but you're gonna get smeared across the wall, so it's not a good idea to walk around at night. So the game gives you options to to stay at hotels or camp. And if you stay at hotels, you get like more experience, or if you stay at a camp, Ignis, your handsome little pretty man, cooks you dinner, and then those dinners give you buffs for the next day, and depending on how good the dinners are, depending on the buffs. And these aren't like little, okay, 5 points here and there, little baby buffs. These are big buffs. We're talking like double your health, double your attacks, so the ingredients that you get are super worth it. And you can get ingredients by fishing, which is actually very fun. I fished a lot, and I was super bad at it, but gosh dang it, I'm gonna get good. You can pick up ingredients, you can fight things for ingredients, you can just buy them, and it's useful because having a buff or not kind of determined if you got killed the next day, which is super nice. So the mechanics are integrated properly. It's not just a bunch of random mumbo jumbo that they tutorialize and then you never touch again. I actually used all the stuff, and that's what we call good game design. One of the mechanics I see a lot of people hating or loving is the car. Now, the car is how you explore EOS for the first time, technically, like how you get from point A to B, go figure. It's a car, vroom vroom. But you can either have an auto drive or a manual drive, and the manual drive is actually not as manual as you think. The car is actually on some type of rail, so you can't just go like, you know, four-wheeling across EOS, as cool as that would be, but then it would like be really out of character, I guess. But yes, the car is for the most part on a track. You can't just like take it wherever you want. It is really good for sightseeing. I really like the vibe when you're driving in the car listening to music. It is kind of there to like take in all the sights. So if you don't like driving, it might annoy you, but there is a quick travel, which is nice. And that's the thing I think 15 does really well when it comes to design, is that everything is convenient. I have not gotten frustrated with a design choice yet because it gives you an option for everything. You just went down this massively long intertwining dungeon that took you forever to get through, and you got to the end of it. Well, here's a prompt. You want to go back to the entrance? Yes, I would. There is a button to go straight back to your car. There's a button to go straight back where you rested at. There's rest stops everywhere. You can go back to the open world wherever you want. You can do whatever the heck you want, and it's not inconvenient. And that's what makes it nice, because a lot of times in Skyrim or something like that, when you get into the end of a dungeon, well, you gotta crawl your way back out. Well, this one, no, they don't care. They know when you want to leave. They know when you're gonna get frustrated. They give you a button where if you don't like something, you can fix it. And that's what's nice about this game. And speaking of pressing a lot of buttons, the combat. Now, Final Fantasy 15 started changing things up a little bit. It went for the more Kingdom Hearts approach rather than traditional turn-based. Now, there is a wait mode where you can kind of turn it turn-based. I didn't actually play with that because I like Kingdom Hearts a lot because I'm a piece of crap. So if you're down for the more slow, methodical stuff, yes, there is a wait mode. Again, there's a button if you want to get rid of your frustrations. It's nice, but the combat is good. And I can't say it's like super amazing Dark Souls level of super satisfying, but things work and things don't work that well. The big mechanic that ends up working, and I'm super glad it worked because I thought it was going to glitch all over the place so I picked up the game, is the warp. Noctis has the ability to warp in and out of battles around the area, and it works super well, and it's very convenient and it's very satisfying to use. Most of the combat can kind of be just boiled down to warp in, warp out, attack the thing, hold down circle, and then pray to God that you know when to dodge right. Because the dodging takes some getting used to. It's actually not tapping square, it's holding square, and it doesn't feel right. The prompt tells you should be tapping it, but you're really supposed to hold it. So the dodging takes some getting used to, and for the most part, a lot of fights are pretty hectic, and it's as complicated as it needs to be. It's not overwhelming. There's not too much to manage. It's not like where you have to pop it into a menu like every 3 seconds to like change something. It's one of those things where you can be underleveled and still win things if you're just really skilled at it, and I personally like that kind of stuff. I hate it in JRPGs where it's like, well, if he's got a bigger number than you, then you're gonna die regardless. But again, if you don't like fast-paced combat, you're gonna have a little bit of an issue with this one because you're blinking all over the place, and sometimes the camera freaks out and I can't tell what the heck is happening, but then I just start holding down circle and I pray to God I don't die. I was also sipping on potions a crap ton, so that got a little annoying. I wish there was like an auto heal thing, but no, we're gonna deal with it. Overall, I give the combat a solid B because it's not amazing, but I didn't get bored of it. Some of the fights get super huge. The scale of this game is like off the hizzy chain or whatever the kids are saying these days, where you're warping from like one side of the map to the other. It's massive, and I personally didn't come across any technical issues. The game did crash once, and I had to restart my PS4, but other than that, I didn't notice a super bad performance issues. Yeah, there was some glitches, blah blah. It's an open world. What do you expect? It's not as bad as Fallout 4 if you're curious. Now, most of the open world, you're going to be spending time with Ignis, Prompto, and Gladios, aka the Backstreet Boys 2.0, because, you know, it's a road trip. You're on a road trip with your best friends going across the country, yada yada. And their AI is fine. Occasionally they'll like walk through random stuff, but they don't get in your way. They're not annoying. Occasionally a lot of voice lines are repeated in combat, but when it comes to just exploring the outside world, it doesn't get on your nerves. They're very endearing characters. A lot of the times when you have party members with you, they just say the same things over and over again. But the amount of lines that are recorded for them is really interesting. They interact with a lot of things, and I like their personalities a lot. They definitely develop over the course of the game. At first they're like like hardcore archetypes, like here's the smart one, here's the comedic relief one, here's the hot one, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the cast is really good and you really do learn to love them. They don't get on your nerves unless you hate pretty people. And Noctis himself, the main character, is fine, I guess. He doesn't have much of a personality because there are dialogue choices in the game, and because of that, a lot of the quote-unquote characters are kind of lost, since you can choose whether or not to be a jerk. But Noctis is enjoyable for the most part. He reminds me of Cloud. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's because he's broody and emo. No, he's just kind of like go with the flow kind of dude, and it's fun playing as him. What can I say? He's got cool hair. Not that I'm biased or anything. Now, the biggest thing that I've seen a lot of reviewers complain about is the second half of the game where the open world stops and becomes super linear. It does, and the only thing I can say to that is that the game warns you like several times. It gives you these big prompts. It's like, hey, you know, you can't come back to the open world for a while. Hint, things are gonna get kind of real. So it's not really an issue. You're not just thrown into it randomly. It's very obvious when it's coming up. And the linear half of the game is not great. It's very boring. It's very mundane. I was stuck in the same area for about 2 hours. But the thing I can say about it is that if you could tolerate 13, you can tolerate this section. It's not a deal breaker. It's just kind of blech. It's just a lot of linear hallways and a lot of story, and it's just a lot of let's get to the ending already so I can get back to the open world. It's fine. It's there. It's not super long, so you can just deal with it, alright? It does feel kind of tacked on. A lot of people are saying it feels messy. It's kind of messy. There's not a lot that goes on. Again, you're just kind of exploring the same labyrinth for like a good 2 hours. And a lot of people are saying this is the most frustrating section of a Final Fantasy game I've ever played, blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously they never played Final Fantasy 13 because, oh my god, it is not that bad. Honestly, if you're just in it for the open world, just don't even bother finishing the game, and then just, you know, when someone says, oh hey, you can't go back to the open world for a while, just don't accept the mission and have fun, gosh dang it. Although, with that being said, I know a lot of extras open up after you beat the game, so some of you are just gonna have to power through it. With all this being said though, with all these Final Fantasy 15 rambles, my god, the game is finally out. We finally got Final Fantasy 15 after so many years of its development. My god. No, this game was not worth the 10-year wait, but it is very good, and I really like it, and it's very enduring. But overall, this is such a good step in the right direction, and if Final Fantasy 16 can kind of build on this while making their linear sections way more interesting and developing the story more while having this kind of detailed in an open world, Final Fantasy is back, baby. It really nailed that feeling of other Final Fantasy games that have open world in them. This is the Final Fantasy of the modern age. Yeah, it's not as long as you want it to be when it comes to the story, but you know what? I can deal with it because I'm gonna be driving around in a sweet convertible looking at one of the most gorgeous open worlds I've seen in a long time. This is exactly what I thought we would get from Final Fantasy 15, and a lot of my fears of the game did end up coming true. I thought it was too ambitious for its development cycle, considering all the stuff we've seen. It actually never made it into the game. I think that they expected too much from people to do research before jumping into the world. I don't think Kingsglaive was a good idea. I wish that was in the game somewhere, like a section of the game that would have been more interesting. I wish the anime was incorporated into the game. I just wish the things around Final Fantasy 15 were in Final Fantasy 15. But for the most part, I can't complain about the game because the gameplay is solid. It's fun, it's super enjoyable, and the design in the game is very good in the open world. So if any of this sounds interesting, pick it up. It's good. Bun seal of approval. Really nice. And if you agreed with anything I say, that's great. Leave a like, leave a comment. I don't care. If you think this game is a piece of garbo and you hate it, leave a comment. I don't care. Talk about it. Do discussions. Do all the things. I like it, so screw you. Bye.